Welcome to all of you. We've been looking very much forward to this occasion. We've been sort of starting slowly, almost secretly since January, and thought that now we've done sufficient to be able to say what we're actually about. We've been prototyping our way through the past year, and it seems like the right time to officially say here we are and open the doors before the first year has gone. You might say that we live, and I think Annette hinted to this, in the age of labs. I think for someone who came from the outside to take a look at academia these days, it would quite possibly seem like we all contracted a contagious version of labyrinthitis. There's a new lab that springs to life on a weekly basis almost. And I think there is something particularly puzzling about that, and possibly even more for somebody who came from the outside. And it is that all these labs don't really look like laboratories at all. You might ask, where are all the petri dishes and all the microscopes? Where are the animal models, the Bunsen burners, the clamps, the tongs, and that black box piece of equipment that only the most specialist of specialists know what is and what is called? And the answer is that all that is not here. Instead, there are desks and coffee machines, there are wall-to-wall whiteboards, there are students mingling with researchers, could you believe it? There are academics mingling with practitioners, could you even more believe it? And there are people claiming to be makers and doers before perhaps they are thinkers and critics. There are people claiming to be designing things, to be prototyping things, to be exploring and experimenting with things. Now, the last bit about experimenting might sound a bit like that old-fashioned laboratory to you, but make no mistake, these prototypes and experiments are not only user-driven and co-created, they are also cross-disciplinary and sometimes made entirely from post-it notes and Play-Doh. So that's not exactly the kind of lab you would expect a Nobel laureate or somebody like that working in. And here's the worst part, at least in our case. We're not only claiming to be a lab, when you come upstairs later on, you will see on our windows that we're also claiming to be a playground. Okay, this is really where you should pull out your Oxford English dictionary and challenge us, I think, to a word of, because of course laboratories are supposed to be serious business. We're not supposed to say that it's all fun and games, right? We should get our etymology straight. How can somebody claim to be both a lab and a playground at the same time? And I think we would agree with you. The only point is that labs are no joke, but neither are playgrounds. Playgrounds are serious business, and anybody who remembers being 3 years old or having kids they've sent off to kindergarten recently for the first time will know this instinctively and by heart. The transition from playing on your own or under the close supervision of adults to actually holding your own against your peers who are your own size, your own age, and who have your own level of ferocity, that can be a tough and challenging experience. And it takes place on playgrounds most of the time. And the Techno-Anthropology Lab, we contribute to a young education. It's barely 5 years of age, so you could say it just started kindergarten. And we face all sorts of formative playground trials all the time. Our students face them late at night in the college bar or at the family dinner when they are talking to that friend or that relative who got into anthropology proper or decided to become a doctor. They will ask, so what exactly is techno-anthropology? We've all been there. They also face it, our students, at their job interviews and when they negotiate a semester project with a company or a public agency. Our researchers face it as well. They face it when they have to justify themselves to their colleagues in more established disciplines, but they also and increasingly face it when they strive to translate the societal relevance of their findings and methods. And I think indeed our collaborators face it a lot of the time when they are trying to figure out reading a student's CV or reading an email from me or one of my colleagues, if indeed techno-anthropologists are someone that you're interested in playing with. So that's also a challenge for them. So we are at the playground. Okay, But playgrounding or playground design is actually a sprawling professional field. In a recent paper on the developmental benefits of playground, Frost et al. Notes that among the benefits of unstructured outdoor play are the abilities to make decisions, work and play within a community of others, and to try out ideas and explore the play environment. Also highlighted are the benefits of pretend play, which has recently been shown to further the development of brain synaptic connections. If children lack opportunities to pretend their long-time capacities related to critical thinking, problem solving, and social functioning, as well as to academic areas such as literacy, mathematics, and science, may be diminished. So that's surely, I think, something worth striving for. And as a collateral bonus, the authors add that besides the social and academic benefits of play, research indicates that children with play opportunities are not likely to be depressed and hostile, and generally do not exhibit excessive fear, rage, and worry. So what's not to like? Let's be playgrounds. The crux of the matter, however, seems to be that good playgrounds have to be thought through. A little bit of playground history, I think, is instructive here. The idea originated in Germany. It was only at the beginning of the 20th century that it started spreading. And here is what President Roosevelt said about playgrounds in 1907. City streets, he said, and this is a picture from a city street in early 1900s New York. City streets are unsatisfactory playgrounds for children because of the danger, because most good games are against the law, because they are too hot in summer, and because in crowded sections of the city, they are apt to be schools of crime. Other children who would play viscerous games must have places especially set aside for them. And since play is a fundamental need, playgrounds should be provided for every child as much as schools. Okay, so the problem here is that there is a classic dilemma at play when you want to build a playground. How can you design something that is supposed to afford games that are vigorous and likely to be against the law? How can you even think about the idea of designing play? I mean, aren't those two opposites? Actually, in Denmark, we have quite a lot of experience with doing just that. At the mid-20th century, there was a landscape architect in this country called Carl Theodor Sørensen who pioneered the concept of the adventure playground, or the junk playground, as it was called back then. This was in the 1940s during the war, and he wanted to create what he called imaginative environments. He was building on the pragmatist ideals of John Dewey, and as has been pointed out in a recent paper about it, it was the imagination of the child, not of the architect, that Dewey would have called the inquiry that was supposed to unfold in these adventure playgrounds. And I think that is a really good ideal to adhere to for a playground like ours. Carl Theodor Sørensen later said that of all the things I have helped to realize, the junk playground is the ugliest, yet for me it is the best and most beautiful of my works. Okay, so ugly is beautiful here, and perhaps messy is as well. It seems essential that playgrounding is about coming out somehow. It is about doing things with others rather than on your own. I mean, that is why you go to the playground. At the Techno-Anthropology Lab, we're trying to do that with our students, for instance, making sure not only that they work problem-based, or simply you could say that they work with other people's problems, and that they do it in concrete collaborations every semester, but also making sure that this work is signposted on our website as part of building a techno-anthropological identity. So there's a communicative exercise in it. But it is also our ambition that they should work, the students that is, directly with us, the researchers, and we have so far tried to ensure that by organizing things we call late-night data sessions, for example, or data sprints, where the students are invited into the engine room of a research project. We see that as a mutually very valuable resource, and there will be a lot more of it in the years to come. We also think that these data sprints are great opportunities for working with external stakeholders and collaborators, and you will hear more about this in a minute in our first panel debate. but you could say in playground terms, they represent some of the most intense moments of play where there's a lot of people playing at the same time on the playground. And of course, when you play, when you're at the playground, you get invited home on play dates. You get to go to other people's houses, and we see that as a great opportunity as well. One of the things we did this year was to assist the municipality of Aalborg in developing a Facebook-driven vision for the future of their schools. Again, this is something you will hear more about in a minute in the first panel, but you could say that going to other people's houses means learning to play by other people's rules, while still honing and fine-tuning your own positions and your own skills. The learning potentials of that tension, we think, are pretty great, and that's something we really want to pursue in the future as well. Right. When you do that, oftentimes, and again, I think this is conveniently equivalent to what happens on actual playgrounds, this learning involves the simultaneous development of our imagination and our motor skills. At the Techno-Anthropology Lab, we work with a range of cutting-edge techniques for harvesting and analyzing large amounts of digital online traces. That is an ongoing process of acquiring tools and acquiring skills, while constantly maintaining that critical and imaginative perspective on the potential applications of these tools and skills. And we think that is best done in a lab setting. It is together with other people's problems, so to speak, that the strengths and weaknesses of new methods can really crystallize. As an example, we just bought 10 complete data sets of Twitter traffic for a range of recent controversies. One of our main objectives next year is to figure out what to do with these data sets. And I think that requires the assistance of you guys, and I really mean all of you, because there's a lot of data and a lot to do, and we could probably even have harvested different sets, and that both require imagination and motor skills. And it will certainly require you to play along. One thing we already know that we will be doing with parts of this, namely the data set on the H1N1 epidemic, is to test ways of scoping the issue public under an epidemic outbreak together with the Danish Board of Technology. We also have Lise with us today from the DBT, who will talk in the second panel. But there are myriads of other applications, and there are, as I said, hundreds of other data sets and practices that we could engage with instead. Later today, you are all invited to join us up in our lab on the second floor, crafting our 2016-2017 agenda. You will do it over a glass of wine, of course. So it will also be festive, hopefully. And this is where we can start figuring out what it is we will be doing together in the future. We even bought, I have to say, a batch making machine. So you are invited to actually do some proper lab work. We do have somewhat of a machine up there today. You can help us decide what our logo or our slogan is going to be. Okay, but first, as a primer, we will have 2 panel discussions to remind ourselves what we have done so far this year. That's panel 1. And to get inspiration for the road ahead, that's panel 2. Of course, that's an unnatural distinction. Maybe we will get inspiration in panel 1 as well. But in either case, I will now hand the floor to Anders Kuhl, who is the moderator of panel 1. And while you say a few words, Anders, I will put on the PowerPoints.